Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. Here in Iowa, we like it when we make national news. Sometimes we don't. Like, politics, caucuses is great. But as of late, we made national news with the resignation and arresting of Superintendent Ian Roberts. And so from the Jethro's Barbecue Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and today we're joined with Matt Smith, the Interim Superintendent, to talk about that issue. Biggest question are you tired after the last 2 weeks? What an exhausting 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's been, fairly exhausting. At the same time, though, it's also energizing, so to speak, for me specifically, right? And if I think about that through my own sort of experience, and the idea that, I've worked in this district for 15 years.
Right.
And it is always energizing to be able to be among the people that I serve every single day, and to continue the work of creating high-quality teaching and learning spaces for kids, and to pour into the adult learning as well as the student learning in our district, and to become, more and more a part of this community every single day. So those things are still exciting for me.
Right.
And yes, there's just a lot of additional other things going on right now, and it's a little bit taxing, but I've got a great team, and folks are pulling together and doing the right things by kids, and we will continue to press forward.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about all of that. Before we do, everybody, you know how things roll around here. We appreciate Jethro's being the sponsor. If you go to iowapodcast.com, scroll to the top, click the banner, you get a $30 gift card with every $100 gift card you buy. So if you like barbecue, cheers. All right, so normally I'd say congratulations on the superintendent position.
Sure.
This is your second rodeo, for those not keeping track, of being the backup interim superintendent.
Yes.
It's happened a few times. But first, let's start with some background. We did an interview with a citizen journalist last week. To her credit, she said, hey, these things are rumors. These things I can't confirm. These are some of the documents I'm reading that may indicate. She was really generous with that. So there are a few things here. There are drug charges now that have come up. This is from Congressman Nunn. There's a grand theft auto, possibly. Drug charges, gun charges, fake degrees, and not a U.S. citizen. To your knowledge, did the board or staff know any of this stuff?
Yeah, no. To my knowledge, no, not at all. And, again, and I appreciate just sort of the comment around many of these things are rumors. They have not been confirmed, because we've tried to be really, really clear with our staff and our community about when we communicate things out as an organization, they have to be facts, and they have to be verified facts. Right. And so we won't speculate about this or about that. As you said, there's a lot of things swirling around out there. I don't know that any of those things are true or not. We just try to keep our focus on serving 30,000 children and the 4,700 adults in our presence, and try to do right by them every day.
Are there any statements swirling about? I'm sure you've read it, and I'm sure the board has read it, and the admin have read them. Are there any specifically that stand out that are just flat out wrong on their face? Any that are worth addressing? Like, hey, we hear this thing a lot. This is wrong.
Yeah, what's interesting about your question is it sort of assumes that I keep my eyes and ears close to everything that's going on in the media. And the truth of the matter is I actually don't, right? And so I certainly pay attention, but I am not glued to the TV. I'm not glued to the media outlets and all that's being reported. And so I actually can't really even respond to that with a great deal of accuracy. What I can respond to is with honesty is I literally go to work, and I engage in the tasks of being a superintendent at this point in time, right, which is organizing teams and making sure that we are keeping our focus on serving 30,000 kids and all of that, that comes with that, right? Get them to school on time and safe, get them fed, making sure that our curriculum instruction teams are actually out in buildings, and that school leaders are supporting their teachers and giving feedback and observations. Like, all of those things are still happening on a daily basis. And that is enough to occupy my time on any given day, right? On a good year. And so right now it's extra sort of important that I keep my focus on that. And then when I'm not at work, I'm with my family. And so I don't spend a lot of time, just looking at social media.
No, absolutely. I mean, it takes hours to sift through all this stuff, right? So that's not your job.
Right.
You do have people for that.
Yeah, there are people that do that, right, for a living.
So what roles, there's a lot of swirling around about the roles that DMPS played, Des Moines Public Schools, obviously.
Yes.
JG Consulting, and then there's the Council for Great City Schools. What roles do these entities actually play in a hiring process?
Yeah, so, the Des Moines Public Schools role is sort of, contrary to what people might think, the district itself doesn't hire necessarily the superintendent, so to speak. That's the board's hire, right? And so the reason why I lift that up is because, there are, we've gotten questions around, Matt, what was your role in this? Well, as the associate superintendent, I don't hire the superintendent, right? I don't hire my boss.
You don't hire your
in
boss,
those situations,
yeah.
right, like that. So the board has one employee, and that is the superintendent. So the board is engaged in that. JG Consulting was the firm that the board hired and signed a contract with for them to perform that function, right, to create the candidacy, to do all the vetting and do all of those things. So I really can't speak any more to that. I know because there's some legal proceedings involved with the consulting firm.
I believe
JG Consulting.
DMPS is now suing the consulting firm in some capacity.
That's correct, right? And so it limits any sort of my ability to actually speak to that because it's within legal proceedings. As it relates to relates to the Council of Great City Schools, they're just advisory, right? They represent some of the I think it's 50, 60 of the largest school districts in the country. And so they offer professional development, professional learning experiences, job alikes, supports, and they just offer sort of consultancy. They don't hire, they don't recommend anybody, they don't do any of that. They stay out of that world, and they allow school districts in that local control to handle that. So I really couldn't speak to more of their involvement at all. They're strictly just advising.
Yeah, it looks like from a board meeting, and you guys uploaded.
And I'm not even saying that wrong, just to be honest with you, right? When I say advising,
yeah.
Do they advise school districts to do one thing or another? They don't. They just give here's like some best practices that they offer up, and then school districts jump into that on their own. They decide that how they're going to do that or how they're going to go about that, who they're going to choose, in terms of a vendor or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the interesting videos, I think it was AJ Crabble. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
I believe, yes.
And he's on the Council of the Great City Schools. And one of the things that was interesting, it seems like his capacity was to help you analyze the survey. You guys did a local survey. I think someone called it a listening tour, something from locals, local schools, local families. One of the things he advised, which caught me, was he strongly advised, I think he did so 3 times, no local folks. And the survey results showed that a lot of people wanted someone local. They wanted someone that was
in terms of an applicant.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. In terms of a superintendent. And he was very adamant saying, and he did a handoff to JG Consulting and the DMPS school board, but he was very adamant saying, you should not be considering local folks. Was there any more conversation around that? Why such an assertion?
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm not aware of that assertion, to be honest with you. Again, so it's interesting that at that time, which is 3 years ago now, I was still serving as interim in that capacity. So I'm not involved in that process of hiring, of developing applicants. So that was not my role. My role was to serve as the acting superintendent until the new superintendent was hired and had taken the reins. So I'm not quite sure about that assertion. I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that was a school board meeting.
Yes,
you weren't
sure.
for those, just to make sure no one thinks I'm just to make this clear, that was a school board meeting with that organization. You were not there.
Right.
And I've already watched the whole thing. You were not there. You were not mentioned as far as I can see. Do you know if anyone had any pre-existing relationship with Superintendent Roberts before this process started?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, okay. Because there are people kind of drawing conclusions. I think DMPS paid $83,000 to a nonprofit called New Leaders. Roberts was an alumni alongside Michael Hinojosa, who was a principal. Yeah, thank you. Who was a principal consultant for JG Consulting. So it looks like if there was a pre-existing relationship. Maybe it was between that organization and Roberts, but not necessarily the school?
Yeah, I mean, not with a school district that I'm aware of. In many of those organizations, you'll find a lot of district and school leaders connected to them because they offer professional learning, right? It's an opportunity to get around job alikes, for associate principals and district office leaders, or folks that are doing similar work to you just in another part of the country, right? So you learn about how they're going about their practice and where they're getting success and how can you learn from that and glean from that and apply that to your own situation. So it's not surprising that any superintendent would be connected in some form or fashion to those organizations because they're all there together learning from one another.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's almost like, hey, this person went to this conference and would have met this individual. It's like, well, yeah, it's education, man. It's a small world.
100%, right? And educators, like many other professions, the job is to get better at your craft, right? The job is to do better today than you did yesterday. And the way to do that sometimes is to get out of your context to learn from someone else in a very similar context or sometimes a very different context, so that you don't sort of generate some groupthink, if you will, where you're located. You learn from folks that are actually in many cases doing it better than you, and you take that opportunity and you say, all right, how can I take what you've done and apply it in my own situation and bring that back? And that is a very common, experience for leaders.
It's even
in school
common
districts.
for me. Like when people ask me about individuals in the PR, podcasting, or comms world,
right.
In many cases, I've probably met them.
100%,
you know what I mean?
yes.
Because once you really push and try to refine your craft in a certain area, it turns out the world's pretty small. A lot of people know each other.
Right.
So I appreciate you bringing clarity to that. Why was there a closed doors meeting in this particular process? The superintendent, I know even early on, people were asking questions about why does this need to be a closed door kind of thing? Now looking back, it kind of makes people even more suspicious out there because they're like, oh, now we know why it was a closed door thing. So was there a reason that you're aware of having a closed doors process?
Are you talking about with the board and here just recently?
No, with the original hiring of Superintendent Roberts.
I don't know. Typically, if there's, according to Iowa law, there's various reasons why you would go into a closed door session, right? And almost always that is either one of two reasons. There's probably a couple more that I'm just missing off the top of my head, but those are if there is a potential litigation involved, and or if there's personnel. Information, confidential personnel information that's not going to be disclosed to the public, right? Sometimes that's contract, things like that. So, many times the closed door sessions are actually indicated, many times, all times, they're indicated by Iowa law and what Iowa law allows to be within a closed session. So, not knowing, years ago what that was, I'm really confident it's one of those situations. It's about a contract or it's about a legal proceeding, something along those lines.
So there could have been, and again, you're saying you don't know, but it could have been some contractual issue or a litigation issue in which this is why they had a closed door session.
Right. Well, those are the reasons why you go into closed doors as a board, and so I'm guessing that it's going to be one of the reasons or one of the allowable closed door criteria that Iowa code provides.
Is there any, do you know how many people were interviewed at all? Is that knowable?
Oh, I don't know. Oftentimes school districts, it's not uncommon for school districts to engage for the superintendency a closed door process, and most often the reason for that is because you have superintendents or sitting superintendents or those that are aspiring to be superintendents where they prefer to keep their application and their interest in your district and your city, somewhat confidential, so that it doesn't disrupt where they currently are with folks knowing that they're attempting to leave the district, right? And so now at some point, I think that becomes more of a, when you get down to finalists, like who are your finalists, that becomes more of a public thing, typically in school districts. But
not here, though, I don't think.
Yeah, and in this case, I don't know that it was or not. All I can tell you was I was doing the job at that point in time, and I just can't. I wasn't part of that process.
Is it I don't know if you've run the numbers. Are you going to be in the superintendent job longer than both your actual superintendent predecessors?
I'm not my predecessors.
Overall?
Yeah, no. Maybe not. I don't
know
think
if that's
so.
true or not. But
I will tell you that I'm really
there should
looking
be
forward.
a trophy.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm excited about being able to serve in the role for 2 years. There's just so much about that is
because you're
rewarding.
contracted now, so no takes backsies, guys.
That's correct.
He's here now.
I am contracted, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it.
The other one I wanted to clear up is there are rumors about, and when I say rumors, I'm not just saying random people tweeting online, because that's completely useless.
Sure.
I'm talking about the AP, I'm talking about KCCI, I'm talking about citizen journalists looking into things, that race was a priority in this superintendent search, that was a focus, was it?
I don't know that to be true. Yeah.
So
I mean, I don't have any evidence of that.
Sure,
right? Yeah.
sure, and that's fair. One of the, I think it was the Iowa State Education Association, and of course Jackie Norris had some similar comments on this, and this stuck out to me. Iowa State Education Association said the incident, and this is the arresting of former Superintendent Roberts, the incident created tremendous fear for DMPS students, families, and staff. And Norris had kind of a similar statement, which was students are scared and concerned by his arrest. Can you talk about the fear within DMPS, the DMPS communities, the teachers, the family? Can you talk about that reaction?
Yeah, I think the reaction is specifically about just the scene of Dr. Roberts' arrest and how much he was looked up to by many of our students. And that in and of itself just creates confusion for folks. And a lot of times confusion manifests itself in sort of a fear, right, if you will. Just in conversation, with students and with families, that was oftentimes lifted up here in the last, couple of weeks. I'm trying to think how long we've been talking about this, right?
It's been 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, 14 or 15 days. It feels a lot longer than that.
It does.
But it was really around just seeing, when you see someone that you look up to that is being arrested and then detained, it just sort of folks begin to ask questions like, well, if that can happen, to a superintendent, who can it happen to? And I think some of those questions came from some of our families. And so as a school district, what we aimed to do during that moment is to, number one, just reassure adults that they're needed in our buildings and they're needed there to be in front of children and to be with one another. Yeah. And that as students or families and adults too in our system, needed to process that. We have, folks trained in that, right? We have, therapists and we have youth mental health therapists as well that we both have in our system, as well as that we contract services with, with partners, and that there are folks that you can talk to about that, about how you're feeling it and about how you're processing it. Because I mean, there's a reason why we're still talking about it today, right? Because it was national news, right? Yeah. And that sort of limelight in and of itself, I think not everybody's comfortable with that and what it means for them. And so I think there's just a lot of emotions and feelings about it that are across the board for folks. And sometimes that comes out as I'm fearful about that, even though I may not be able to tell you what I'm fearful necessarily about. I'm just, the situation is unsettling for folks.
I know that Des Moines Public Schools in the past has had high levels of immigration from other countries. I'm not saying illegal immigration, just high levels of immigration. That, by the way, that's one of the things that drives me crazy is the conflation between immigration and illegal immigration. If we all would be more clear on that, it would probably be more helpful. But is that part of the fear that we have a high level of immigrants in Des Moines Public Schools, and some may be undocumented, some are documented, and people are fearful that their undocumented status is going to get them focused on? Is this one of the fears?
Yeah, I think it could be the fear, right, for several of our families, right? And to your point, the conflation of the two, I think, is also maybe driving some of that. And it's complex, right? Because the question is really around how are we as a school district engaging with families who are expressing this kind of a fear, and how do we serve and support them during this time while also maintaining our priorities around making sure that they're fed, making sure that they get to school on time, that they're safe in our buildings, that they're receiving high quality teaching and learning experiences, right? All of those things are still part of the day that we that we offer to children and families. And again, going back to this notion of seeing this scene unfold and having students feel, either, fearful about it or confused about it or angry about it, in any emotion, right, that you can sort of name, and trying to navigate that with them has been, challenging. And also that's what we're here to do, right? As adults, we're here to actually support our students regardless of how they're feeling about a situation or a topic that's going on in their lives. And our job is to actually keep them safe and centered and supported, while also teaching them literacy and teaching them mathematics, right, and performing arts, right. That's our job is to maintain stability and to keep them safe in these learning environments. And so that's more than probably what you're asking me, but I'm just thinking about, out loud with you about the last couple of weeks, and it's been a challenge.
I guess the question, and I think you already, I think, answered it, but the question is, if a superintendent gets arrested by ICE, and someone's natural reaction, a lot of reactions are fearful for themselves, my mind goes to, do we have a high percentage of undocumented immigrants in Des Moines public schools?
Yeah, and and those are the things I actually can't speak to, right? And so we don't ask those questions for enrollment, right? That's not part of, we legally cannot ask those questions, right? Yeah, we can't ask those questions. And what I can tell you is that if a student shows up at our doorstep, we're going to love them, we're going to care for them, we're going to support them, and we're going to teach them, and we're going to make sure that they are safe in our buildings and that they are engaged academically and socially, and that we pour into their entire health and well-being. Like, those are things that I can guarantee you that we do. And we'll do it on a daily basis, and we'll continue to do it.
Yeah, and just to be very clear on this show, it doesn't matter your immigration status, it doesn't matter your religious status. We do believe that all people and all individuals should be taken care of and loved.
Yes.
There are laws to follow, but we can follow laws without hating individuals. So want to be very clear on this show. So let's move over to Des Moines Public Schools in general.
Yeah.
The reading proficiency in the past has not been great. You're aware of this stuff. I think 1 in 7 chronic absentee rates. Did enrollment, there are a lot of factors here, a lot of challenges that you have, but I want to ask how you're addressing that. But then also, has enrollment recovered from post-COVID, from the pre-COVID era? Because I know there was a huge enrollment dive.
Yeah, there was.
Has it recovered at this point?
It actually hasn't. And so, Des Moines, like many school districts across the country, particularly urban school districts, right? Some of your larger school districts, saw significant dips in enrollment during COVID, and we actually have not recovered from that yet. And so those, and that's significant for us, not because that's revenue, right? For us, that's how we actually pay for the teachers. That's how we pay for the programs, right?
Because your funding comes from per student.
It does. It's a per student allotment, and so. So those aspects of enrollment, it's not just about students and seats. It is about how we actually serve students in the seats. And so when you have dips in enrollment like that, it plays a significant factor in our budgeting process and the services that we can provide. So no, enrollment has been and continues to be a challenge for us since the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And we're not talking about like an insignificant amount, right? The years prior to the pandemic, I think on average we had a net loss when you consider open enrollment into the district versus open enrollment out of the district. We had a net loss of about, on average about 300 students a year.
And this was
right?
pre-pandemic?
That was pre-pandemic, right?
So it was already on the decline.
It was on the decline,
Wow.
right? And then the pandemic hit, and it was over 1,000. And so we haven't recovered from that, right? And so we've actually lost students since then, and continue to do so. And most interestingly, we look at sort of heat maps of enrollment loss, not only geographically in the city, but also by grade level, and by just sort of geographical location. And over the years, the trend has been for the last several years at least, that we lose the predominant amount of students from a 5th to 6th grade transition. And so we're looking to address that, right, with this Reimagine education plan, right, around how we actually keep and maintain students in 6th grade in their elementary schools, while we're also redesigning the middle school experience, right, so that it's much more engaging, it's much more hands-on experiential learning through career and technical education. So there's a lot of that this Reimagine plan actually does to actually combat enrollment enrollment loss and begin to reverse that trend moving forward in the years to come. It's also about literacy, to your point, right? So literacy is fundamentally begins in high quality preschool. And when students, the research is irrefutable, and it's decades old research that continues to be updated every year, is that when a student has access to high quality preschool, they're almost twice as likely to be proficient, not only in kindergarten, but we've been tracking that data in Des Moines for the last 6 years. And so we have data of that shows students that had high quality preschool versus in comparison to their peers without it, are scoring at almost twice the rate proficiency all the way through 6th grade. And so it maintains that trajectory. So it supports the decades-old research that's out there. So in terms of literacy, that's part of why this plan is so important for us, is that it allows us to give more access to more students to high-quality preschool by building some of these spaces for them. We just need some, state funding programming dollars to actually help support that and help it, make it sustainable for years to come. The other aspect about literacy is just going back to this, investment in career and technical education and in the signature school programs. That's about relevancy, right? And so research around just high quality teaching and learning has been out there for a really long time as it relates to the classrooms being rigorous and relevant. Rigorous, comes through standards, right? And so are we teaching the standards to students at grade level or above grade level? That's how we sort of begin to define rigor in a classroom. But relevancy is about what does it mean to the student, not only personally, but what does it mean to their trajectory when they graduate from high school, right? Do they have clear-cut pathways for enrollment in post-secondary education, whether that's a 2-year or a 4-year degree? Do they have clear-cut pathway to employment, right? And the way to have that is not just with a diploma, it's with some sort of industry-recognized credential or some experiences that allows them to actually offer up that to an employer that says, not only, for example, do I want to be in the health sciences field as a paramedic, I've actually got my EMT license from Des Moines Public Schools, which we offer right now.
Kind of blending the trade school idea and a high school idea.
100%, right? And for students that, advanced placement coursework, that's their passion, that's their gift, right? Like offering more of those and having them be more accessible for students. That's all part of this Reimagine Education plan, which goes back to your fundamental question of how do you begin to improve the academics for children? Well, this is how, right? It's both rigor and relevance for students. We've got to double down on the relevance for kids, though, and we've got to do it actually at a much earlier age.
One of the hot topics right now in public education is that more conservative audience would say, hey, we feel like our students are getting shoved ideology down their throat about trans stuff, and that's our job, the parents. Leave it alone. And then other people are saying, no, this is part of education. We should be talking about multiple genders. So we've had people in here on both sides. Do you have guidance or recommendations in Des Moines Public Schools on how you will tackle this issue? Do you say we will instruct this way or that way? Or do you say, hey, everybody, hands off. This is a parent thing. We're not going to get involved in that. Do your educational lane. Do you have guidance on that?
Yeah, well, the guidance comes from the state in the Department of Education, right? So over the last several years, there's been some laws passed, and the Department of Education has put out compliance documents and guidance for school districts. And so when it comes to, how does Des Moines Public Schools handle that? We follow the state law. We follow the guidance on that, right? And where I would offer is that going back to a previous sort of question that you had around this notion of students that may or may not be documented and how do we serve them? Whoever shows up at our door, we serve them with love, with compassion.
Because that's not your role to prosecute or call people out.
That's 100% not our role. Our role is to say, you are a human being showing up on our doorstep, and you're asking us to
we have an obligation to help you.
Yes, you're showing up and trusting us to make sure that you are safe, that you're fed, that you've got a place to sleep, right? And we're going to teach you, math, science, social studies. We're going to help you find your passion so that you can grow to be the person that you were created to be, right? We don't tell you who you need to be. We create pathways and experiences and opportunities for you to know who you are and what pathway is going to drive you so that you're going to be the neighbor that people say you're a caring adult, you're skilled, you're educated, right? You're compassionate, in terms of your civic duty of supporting your neighbors. Like that's what we're trying to cultivate and create in Des Moines Public Schools. And it doesn't matter who you, how you show up or who you show up as. We're going to serve you and love you and care for you no matter what, and offer that to you.
Yeah. So I really
appreciate that question, how you're asking that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Because it's important.
Absolutely. The whole point of the show is to try to remove as much bias as possible.
Yeah.
I certainly have my biases, but it doesn't help.
Right?
It doesn't help listeners. Because the reason I ask is because there were photos circulating online from the Des Moines Public School District. I believe it was North. We'll put this link, but of like a trans flag and a bunch of stuff hanging in the principal's office or at the principal's office.
Okay.
Now this was years ago, according to the report.
Right.
So I'm assuming that's not the case now.
Yeah. I mean, that would not follow Iowa law.
So,
right?
okay.
And so, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like when you go back to Iowa law and the Department of Education guidance, that's changed over the last several years.
Sure. Okay.
And so, we're in compliance with that.
So the cell phone policy, this is the last question, then we're going to let you go. Cell phone policy, I believe we have now. Is that working? Are we seeing good results from that?
It is working. Yeah, it is working, right? I've heard, students and of course parents and staff say this too, but folks feel connected again, right? In terms of just that human connection, right? And so, it is working, and it's actually really, really fun and exciting to see students not only in the hallway but in the cafeteria, right, in those moments, really taking the opportunity and advantage of having folks sit directly across from them, and you're making the eye contact, right, and then you begin to sort of experience what they're experiencing, right, and so it will go a long way, I believe, and sort of helping not just Des Moines Public Schools, but across the state of Iowa around helping students to reconnect with their peers in a manner that they've actually not experienced before, right? Because they've grown up with these cell phones, they've grown up with these devices in front of them, and I see it obviously with my own children, right? I've got 4 kids, and 2 have graduated from Des Moines Public Schools. I've still got 2 in Des Moines Public Schools. Now one is 4th grade, so he does not have a cell phone, and so nor will he anytime soon. So, but it is refreshing to engage with students on a very sort of personal level at any age and at any level in our district right now because of the cell phone policy. So that's been really, really, that's a win.
I know we're just 2 minutes over, but I know that the ballot measure matters a lot to you.
It does.
And so Superintendent Matt Smith, Interim Superintendent Matt Smith, can we call you Superintendent, or does it have to be Interim?
Yeah, just go with Superintendent.
I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
Superintendent Matt Smith, I really appreciate you being on the show, answering some difficult questions, but can you go ahead and plug that ballot measure and talk about that with the remaining few seconds?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so the ballot's coming up November 4th. It is a $265 million bond that will make significant investments across our district in just 5 years in career and technical education at the middle schools and high schools. It will invest in signature schools, which, if you're not familiar with that phrase, if you think about magnet schools that offer students intensive supports in STEM, if you will, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, also the arts. And so students will be immersed in these experiences to actually further hone their interests and their passions and their skill sets, right, to set them up for a employment right after high school or directly into a 2 or 4 year college, right, or the military of their choice, right? So enlistment is also part of this. It also actually creates more preschool spaces, flexible spaces, right, so that we can offer more access to more preschool students that are eligible for 4 years old. It actually, investments like this tend to actually improve home values. We're not talking about an incredible, the original plan was $500 million. This is a $265 million ballot. And it's less than $200 for the average value of a home of $200,000 a year. So if the average home in Des Moines is $200,000, it would be less than $200 a year for an increase in property taxes. That's about $16.53 a month would be the investment. And again, it's an investment not only of the students' experience today and what it offers them. It's an investment for the 30,000 students of next year and the 30,000 students the following year. It's a generational investment And it's a win-win-win, meaning it's a win for kids, it's a win for homeowners, because it will actually improve their home values, because strong schools is strong communities. And it's also a win economically because it creates jobs, right? Because of the amount of construction that we're talking about in our city. And so it really, really is a win. It's going to boost economic development.
Superintendent Matt Smith of the Des Moines Public School District, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast and helping us set the record straight and unpack this issue, which I know has been quite exhausting for you. So thank you for giving us your time.
My
in this
pleasure,
moment.
Justin. Thanks so much.
Hey everyone, Justin here. Death is not the easiest topic to discuss. It's a hard one. It's pretty heavy. But I want you to think about this. What were to happen if you died right now? You died on the job. A lot of you listen while you're working, while you're commuting, while you're working, while you're driving for your job. What would happen right now if you died? Or if you got severely injured on the job? What would you do? What would your family do? If you don't have an answer, that's a problem, because you're leaving them to pick up the pieces. I had Nate Bolton in here. He's an Iowa workers' rights attorney to talk about this very topic. Like, what do you actually do? How should you prepare in advance? He spent 20 minutes with me just giving you resources to tell you what to do, what to plan for, how to act, who to call. And so his number one chunk of advice is just have a plan ahead of time. Deal with the reality. It'll probably never happen, but just have a plan. The whole show's free. It doesn't cost you anything. iowapodcast.com/Nate. iowapodcast.com/Nate. Listen to that interview. So much good information. And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.